Science is the study of nature, and the most perplexing natural wonder of all might just be our own brain-mind. It's unimaginably complex, entirely surrounded by bone, terribly vulnerable to intrusion, and no two of them are alike. All of these factors combine to make psychiatry's task of understanding its subject far more difficult than it is in other medical specialties. In the face of enormous gaps in our knowledge, psychiatry has historically grabbed at slender reeds of evidence and then played fast and loose with science, ambitiously concocting theories in a vain effort to assert mastery over what remains a mystery. In order to grasp just how far psychiatry's brand of science has strayed from established scientific fact, you first have to understand the scientific method, which is how all scientific knowledge is obtained and verified. Physicist Jose Woodka described it as the best way yet discovered for winnowing the truth from lies and delusion. For the past 1,000 years, it has prevailed as the prescribed manner in which any working assumption is examined and validated, a sort of intellectual filter specifically designed to eliminate all bullshit. The birth of the scientific method is credited to the great Arab physicist and mathematician Ibn al-Haytham, who in the early 11th century performed rigorous experimentation while studying optics. The steps of the scientific method are as follows. Step 1. Observe and describe a phenomenon. Step 2. Formulate a hypothesis to explain the phenomenon. Step 3. Use the hypothesis to predict outcomes. Step 4. Test the hypothesis through experimentation and/or further observation, and modify the hypothesis in light of the results. Step 5. Repeat steps 3 and 4 until there are no discrepancies between your hypothesis and the results. When a hypothesis has been run through this mill over and over, demonstrating its validity to the point that it's accepted as proven by a consensus of the scientific community, then it's called a theory, a conceptual framework used to explain existing observations and to predict new ones. This use of the word theory is very different from the way that we use it in everyday language, where it conveys doubt and speculation. While in science no theory is unquestionable, because almost nothing in science is actually unquestionable, a theory is a proposition that's already been verified as true after extensive scientific testing, is already widely accepted by the scientific community, and is now used as a foundation for further study. Critics of science have exploited this ambiguity to cultivate disbelief. After all, the theory of evolution is just a theory, and if your personal definition of theory is a dubious supposition rather than a generally accepted fact, then a scientist's unqualified endorsement might seem imprudent. But it isn't. Theories are not imprudent. The single most ignorant and misleading claim spouted by science's opponents is that science is a faith in itself, when nothing could be further from the truth. Properly done, science is the antithesis of faith, because its driving purpose is to question perceived truth rather than accept it. Like any other human enterprise, science is corruptible, especially when big money is at stake. And in a time when psychiatry lays claim to being based on science, it does so by shrouding itself in pseudo-scientific myths to create the illusion of precision where there is none. Most notably the fictitious chemical imbalance that has been used to peddle drugs and promote patient compliance for decades. Psychiatry has abandoned the essential skepticism that science requires because we have way too little hard knowledge about how the brain-mind actually functions. And yet we need the illusion of knowledge in order to promote our products and our services. Countless millions in research dollars have been spent amassing evidence to prop up psychiatry's biological model and promote pharmaceutical products, more intent on generating pharmaceutical ad copy than establishing scientific fact. Ibn al-Haytham foresaw the corruptibility of the scientific process. As he put it, truth is sought for its own sake, And those who are engaged upon the quest for anything for its own sake are not interested in other things. The sad truth is that most of psychiatry's scientific knowledge today has been in a state of developmental arrest, stuck on a warped rendition of step 3, which could be restated as, screw the scientific method, use the hypothesis to market psychiatry and its products. You will find little in my work that attempts to assert any hard scientific truths, because the determination of scientific truth occurs through the exhaustive efforts of a community rather than the musings of an individual. I'm limited to exercising my scientifically driven skepticism to doubt everything until all doubt is removed, shooting intellectual spitballs at institutions that may have less to do with real science than I do, because they're no longer primarily engaged in the pursuit of truth or driven by scientific skepticism. Old Ibn al-Haytham has provided me some cover for this mission, as he states, "The duty of the man who investigates the writings of scientists, if learning the truth is his goal, is to make himself the enemy of all that he reads and to attack it from every side. He should also suspect himself as he performs his own critical examination of it, so that he may avoid falling into either prejudice or leniency." If you question this wisdom, remember that this is a guy who formulated an idea that is still with us 1,000 years later. So in that spirit, I invite you all to apply critical thinking to anything I might say in my videos or elsewhere, but to remember that doing so also requires a rigorous examination of your own beliefs. The scientific method demands a wholehearted embrace of skepticism, because that's the only way to establish that the truth you hold will be the one that endures.